You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.
I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is
The Coop. Today's episode is You Are Enough.
You are.
And you are.
You are.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
We know. You are enough. You are exactly who your kids need right now. Trust yourself a little more and create a custom homeschool environment that fits you and your children. So we're going to walk you through that by giving you some reassurance through the research, to talk a little bit on custom education, and to share some affirmations. But before we do, we have a scoop.
And it's shared.
Go ahead, Mandy.
All right, so some of us Coop Group moms went on a wine and paint night, and we, of course, painted roosters together.
And we didn't know that.
Yeah,
And it
I
ended
know.
up being so serendipitous.
Yeah.
That it was really awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. I think there were 6 of us, and then we went out to dinner afterwards, and it was just really fun. It's fun learning a new skill with people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like, oh, look at yours. Oh, look at yours.
Right. There's a lot of vulnerability
Yeah.
for those of us who've never had an art lesson in our lives and who don't feel confident in fine art
Yeah,
and
totally.
that type of artistry and creativity. I know that I basically go like, I'm here for friendship. You know, I'm not
Exactly.
here for a masterpiece.
Yeah, and what I love is the moms that we've chosen to surround ourselves with are moms who can feel that too, or can feel that from us.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, look at Mandy's. And I'm like, oh, just confirmed my, insecurity, and it's just nice to be surrounded with friends who are willing to find the good in something that you do.
And even just be able to laugh.
Yeah.
At the moments where we do make a mistake, not to have to not be genuine with someone and be like, oh no, it's fine.
Yeah.
To be able to go, oh, yep, that's
funny.
a hilarious
Yeah.
tail feather, and then to watch you fix it.
Yeah. So it was a really great night, really fun. And I really love experiences with other moms where you're actually learning something together. And then what I usually do from a wine and paint night, every couple of years when I go to one, I bring home the lesson to my kids. And because you gain a lot, the teacher's actually teaching it with the mindset that you don't know anything.
Exactly.
And so that's a great way to then teach your kids. So I take pictures all along the way.
Yes.
To help me remember what to do with my own kids. So
awesome.
it's a re-gifting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't have a desire to share it with my kids. But it is fun to be able to go home and have them only see the final product and say, that's a rooster. And I'm like,
yeah.
yes,
It's
it is.
amazing.
You can
did
recognize
that?
it. Yeah. So I enjoy that aspect. All right. Are you ready?
Ready, Freddie.
Okay. So this is You Are Enough. And it's so easy to doubt ourselves in all capacities. I don't think this is exclusive to homeschool moms by any means. I think it's shared by all of humanity.
Yeah.
But especially as moms, I think we all feel inadequate. We all feel like we don't do enough. But really what we want to focus in on today is, are you providing your kids with enough to be successful? As a homeschool mom, that's typically what we're measuring. We're measuring future success or future awesome adults in the world, know? And so we're kind of looking long term and judging ourselves now for something we can't even foresee yet.
Right.
We might have amazing kids based on doing all the current things that we're doing, but we're so afraid we won't. We're judging ourselves now. And I think we're our own worst critics. And I think the world is so full of comparison and judgment that we often feel the weight of that and put it on ourselves. And so this is an episode to try and really help us through that in tangible ways. And so I wanted to start with reassurance in the research. So I'm taking a different approach today and not discussing any one particular study or set of research, but actually a lot of them, and they are all referenced in our show notes. So I do recommend, if any of these are interesting to you, please go to the show notes on our website and click through the links. I have them all linked here, all from different types of sources. So it's not just Psychology Today. It's not just a child development website. It's not just a mom blog. It's all of them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different places because we're going to find some commonalities here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to share a bunch of different things. So stay with me. This first topic I want to go into is how to help children succeed as adults. So how can we as parents help our children succeed? So this first one is the 6 skills that children really need to succeed as adults. And this is from a website called yourparentingmojo.com. And they cite two doctors, Dr. Roberta Golinkoff and Dr. Kathy Hirsch-Pasek, who identify the 6 C's and their 4 levels of mastery.
Ooh.
So it's a whole table, which will be in our show notes as well, which I think is a really fascinating
cool.
table. It makes it really easy to look at. But I'm going to read it aloud for those of you listening. The first C is collaboration. And within that, it has the 4 levels. The first being build it together. The second, back and forth. The third is side by side. And the fourth is on my own. So those are just different forms of collaboration. The next C is communication. The first level is tell a joint story. Second level is dialogue. Third is show and tell. And fourth is raw emotion. The third C is content. Level 1 is expertise. Level 2, making connections. Level 3, wide breadth or shallow understanding. Wide breadth and shallow understanding. And level 4, early learning, situation specific. The fourth C is critical thinking. Level 1 being evidence. Level 2, opinions. Level 3, truths differ. Level 4, seeing is believing. Creative innovation. Level 1, vision. Level 2, voice. Level 3, means end. And level 4, experimentation. And the final C is confidence. Level 1 is dare to fail. Level 2, calculated risks. Level 3, where do I stand? And level 4, barrel on. So I know that's a lot to take in and interpret. And again, I highly suggest you actually go and read the article. It'll provide a lot of information. But as homeschool moms, I feel like those 6 C's are totally things that we often are always looking at. We're looking on how to collaborate with our kids, how to communicate with them, the content we're providing them, how to make them critical thinkers, creative innovation, and giving them confidence.
I mean, you do that around the dinner table. If you sit as a
Absolutely.
family to eat dinner together a couple times a week, you're almost doing all of those things.
Exactly.
In the topics that come up. And,
Right. And if those are markers on how to make successful adults, then I think homeschool parents probably weigh in even more on those
definitely.
things. You know, because
Yeah.
while they can be done at the dinner table a couple nights a week, how much more could they be done with you?
Oh, yeah. We do that in the car.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Another study says kids who do chores become more successful adults.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that right there.
Yeah.
It's a work ethic thing, right? Then UNICEF shares 5 ways to help set your child up for future success. Number 1, stimulate baby talk and treat it as a real conversation. This is for babies. But if you've done these things, a big fat check mark for you.
Well, aren't you the just cutest little baby? Look at your dirty diaper.
I know. Number 2, read to your baby to exercise language. Number 3, use everyday experiences as learning opportunities. This is a little more relevant to our older children. 4, take play seriously. And 5, lead by example.
That's the hardest one.
Sure is.
Do what I say, not what I do.
Yep, exactly.
But at least when we know we're not able to lead by example, I feel like we're still able to, most people are still able to recognize that and say, I'm having dessert every night, but that's not what I want for you. I mean, we've said this ourselves. We've told our kids numerous times, we want you to be better than us.
Yeah.
We want you to find a spouse better than our spouse. We want you to have a better life than us.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you've been working on those things since your kid was a baby, you're probably doing a really good job towards future success. Entrepreneur.com has these 12 ways to prepare your kids to lead happy, successful lives. 1, move to the best neighborhood you can afford. 2, become a happier and less stressed person yourself. 3, make them do chores.
There's that chores again.
4, make your kids read daily and learn math at an early age. 5, set high expectations. 6, praise them correctly. 7, create family rituals.
I love that one.
8, teach them to be gritty. 9, help them build meaningful relationships. 10, teach them to be all around healthy. 11, give them bias-proof names.
What?
For more, go to entrepreneur.com and check it out.
Okay.
And encourage entrepreneurship.
Well, can I just comment
Yeah, of
on
course.
the teach them to be gritty? We talk about that a little bit in our quitting episode, like finding the balance of when to let someone quit and when to not. And, you know, teaching our kids to do, I can do hard things and things like that. And it's just part of life. And I think homeschoolers have more of a handle on a lot of these things because we're there for all of it. And our value systems have most of these things in there.
Right. If it weren't for being a homeschool parent, I wouldn't have found the language in my dance classes to help kids when they feel like something is too hard. But I'll have kids like, oh, Miss Jessica, I don't want to hold my arm up anymore. And I'm like, oh, well, we can do hard things together. This is hard for me too. You know, and just realizing that they need validation, that it is hard. But that they can do it. You know, and they need that encouragement and the inability to just give up. You know, so there's a little bit of that I think we naturally start to see as homeschool parents because we're like, no, you do need to get this thing done. You know, we can't just let you not do anything because we're there with them all day. You know.
Well, and then making them read every day. There's different nuances to that, right?
Absolutely.
You know, it could be just the fact that I'm reading aloud to them because I know they're not going to read a book about Leonardo da Vinci or Johann Sebastian Bach.
Totally.
But if I read it aloud and I play music in the background and we watch the YouTubes, they are reading every day and that they're listening.
I agree. Parenting for Brain has 7 tips on how to raise successful kids according to science. 1, be a warm, responsive, and accepting parent. 2, master and teach emotional regulation. 3, let them practice decision making. 4, challenge them just enough. 5, stop using reward and punishment. Motivate them through values. 6, kind, firm, and respectful discipline. 7, listen to science and avoid parenting myths. Lifehack.org.
Wait, can I mention one of the parenting myths?
Yeah.
One of the parenting myths is that children have to go to someone else to learn.
Yes.
And that's what you are enough. They don't have to go to an expert to learn.
Exactly. Lifehack.org has 5 things every child needs to be successful in life. 1, a reliable environment. 2, opportunities to grow. 3, connectivity. 4, encouragement. And 5, problem-solving skills. I like that list a lot. And now the next...
I like the shorter lists.
I know. The long ones, they're reaching a little bit sometimes. The next topic we're going to look at research on is children's psychological needs. I felt that this could be very reassuring to a lot of us that you are enough if you're meeting your kids' psychological needs. This is Mental Health America, what every child needs for good mental health. Unconditional love from family. Self-confidence and high self-esteem. The opportunity to play with other children, encouraging teachers and supportive caretakers, safe and secure surroundings, appropriate guidance, and discipline.
And what are some things we've said in the past? We've said as long as your kids, when they're grown adults, know that they were unconditionally loved and can problem solve.
Right.
They're equipped for life, you know?
I should hope so.
Yeah.
And then this information, these top 3 things that kids need, was a combined list, or it was in common. I found it on CNBC and from Liverpool John Moores University. And these top 3 things that kids need are 1, autonomy, 2, competence. And in that, they mean the ability to be competent at something. Not everything, but they need to know what it feels like to achieve competence at something. And 3, relatedness. So to see how they are related to other things, to see where they fit
Their
in.
place in this world.
Yep. So that was 2 separate sources I didn't know had the exact same thing.
That's
and then
crazy.
I read these articles and
Based
I was like,
on the
oh,
same
they're
studies,
the same.
probably.
Probably of similar studies, exactly. And then the Pollock Peace Building Systems website shares the 6 core human needs: autonomy, safety, personal significance, authentic connection and acceptance, progress, and stimulation and amusement. Atlas Psychology Collective has these 2 children's most basic needs: love and warmth, and consistent limits. And then finally, the category I wanted to find research on was intelligence and academic success. Psychology Today has this research or this information on how to raise intelligent kids. 1, take care of yourself.
Like our wine and paint nights.
Yes.
Our mom time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we talk about that in episode 21, Homeschool Mom Self-Care.
Yeah.
And we talk about different ways that homeschool moms specifically can work to take care of themselves. So back to our Psychology Today, how to raise intelligent kids. 1, take care of yourself. 2, show your children bountiful love in action. 3, listen. Really listen. 4, make sure there's lots of time for play. 5, stimulate all your child's senses. 6, model and teach how to manage emotions. 7, pay attention to your child's physical development. Be aware of when things are changing for them, particularly puberty. 8, nurture your child's creativity. Another article from typingadventure.com is how to help your child achieve academic success. 1, encourage them to set real goals. 2, give them access to the necessary tools for better education. 3, teach them time management skills. And 4, encourage positive study habits. I was reading ahead too. Focus on the family. Focus on the Family gives 10 ways to boost your child's academic potential. Number 1, read, read, read. Number 2, use everyday experiences as teaching opportunities. 3, know what your child is studying at school. 4, don't just look for A's. 5, take care of the basics. 6, talk to your child's teacher regularly.
Done.
7, what's your child's motivation? Know what motivates them. 8, allow your child to succeed and fail on their own. 9, practice discipline and respect at home. 10, praise and encouragement. I liked this list and I included it because it specifically referenced school and teachers, but it's not an exclusive thing.
Right.
You absolutely know what your child is studying if you're the one curating the content and teaching it.
Yeah. Even if you're outsourcing, you know the subject you're outsourcing.
Right. And number 4, don't just look for A's. I think that's pretty clear to most homeschool parents. I think we most of the time all consider tests to be unnecessary because we kind of know based on working with them on a daily basis where they are in their understanding.
Yeah.
And we know that acing a test may or may not mean they know the content.
Yeah, we've talked a ton about it. And the only way, like we've mentioned, that we might use it is I don't feel like grading the last 8 lessons. So, hey, do this 1 or 2 pager thing and then I'll know if you know it. Yeah.
And then, of course, talking to your child's teacher regularly.
Yeah,
you know, and that's easy.
Yeah.
You know. So what did all of these lists have in common? Did you notice some major standouts, Mandy?
Well,
She wasn't prepared for this.
the unconditional love or love and acceptance or encouragement, those positive vibes, the
and that
nurturing.
crossed topics too. That wasn't just for successful adults, but that was also academic success, child psychology.
Yeah, creating a nurturing environment, basically an accepting environment, not focusing just on none of them actually said character building.
I know.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, there's just a lot of modeling and then a lot of the
true.
regulation, self-regulation, and emotional stuff, which I would
That's true.
loosely put under the category of
that's
character.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's basically stuff parents across the board need to do in general.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that homeschool parents tend to be a crowd that really believe that and embody that. That's mostly why we choose to homeschool. So I agree. I think the most important thing that we saw was a parent's love, guidance, and involvement in their lives.
Involvement, yeah.
Not one thing on these lists required kids to attend public school or learn from a certified teacher.
Right.
I think that's a big reassurance to us as
homeschool
moms.
It did say competence on something, but it didn't say the person teaching them had to be the expert, had to be the content expert, had to know all the teaching skills.
Absolutely.
It didn't say the person who had to be doing it for
Your
them. I think that's a great point.
Just made pull-apart bread tonight.
Yeah.
And it was delicious. And I would say she is really learning competence in the kitchen.
Right.
And how is she learning that?
Through Radish Kids autonomously, basically.
Almost autonomously.
Almost autonomously. I, for years, have had them when I'm making muffins. Who wants to make muffins with me?
Right.
Or the first time they do a recipe, especially in the beginning, the first time she was doing recipes, I was in the kitchen with her and helping her. But, I mean, she's perfecting these things.
Yeah.
I mean, she did leave the bread out because she wanted to play a video game. And then I said, she hadn't covered it to rise. And I said, whoa. It takes 5 minutes. Just come back here, put it in the bowl and cover it.
Do it properly.
Yeah. And so, she huffed and puffed about hitting pause, but went and did that.
Yeah.
And so those are just the little ways that I'm involved.
Right. But she's going to eventually become a competent baker because she wants to. And that's a skill that she's learning outside of an expert, outside of, this is completely just you guys.
And if you know this about me is I don't cook, I don't bake, I don't do any of that.
Well, you are capable of it.
I'm capable
but you
of
don't.
following directions.
But you don't.
But
it's
I
not
don't.
a joy that you have.
It's not. I'd rather be working on a podcast.
Yeah.
Or I'd rather be preparing an art lesson or something.
So it's not even something that you've led by example in the sense of something that they could do together with you all the time.
Right.
Or you're showing them how to do it. It's not something that they would have just picked up along the way if it wasn't intentional.
Right. Yeah, getting the Radish Kids, and we have that as a fave actually in one of our episodes, but getting the Radish Kids actually equipped her to be autonomous.
Yep.
And I love that. I want them to be autonomous with stuff. And then I could be a guide on putting something in the oven and helping them learn the nuance of how to put something in the oven and take it out.
Right. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
Will we do everything right all the time?
No.
Of course not. We all know that. But if we're working hard, focused on our family's needs and growth, we have a great shot at raising children that will become successful adults. Focus on the Family provided these 2 check-ins that I thought were really perfect. 1, are you seeking wisdom? So for you and I, our wisdom is given to us by God. And so we are reading our Bibles. We are trying to seek biblical counsel when we aren't sure how to handle a situation with our kids. Not all the time, but that's the thing. Is that where we're going? Are we trying to do better? Are we trying to understand something more? Are we doing research on the psychological needs of our kids because we want to be the best parents we can be? If you are, then I think that that's a great indicator that you are working to be enough for your kid.
I think the seeking wisdom is the being intentional.
Absolutely.
And so I think most people who decide to homeschool are intentional. I mean, you're not going to be intentional every action of your day.
No.
But you are intentional enough. There's the idea of the good enough.
Yes.
And it's good enough if you're getting wisdom from trusted sources, from a friend that you appreciate their parenting and their discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the second of the check-ins is, am I loving my kids? And that's a really easy one to answer. And it's really easy to see if you are too worried about being enough that you're focusing on the wrong things. And we talk about that in The Idol of School. We talk a little bit about focusing too much on the academic aspect of their upbringing. And that's okay. This check-in is a great opportunity for us to see.
Yeah, and you know, I'm just going to give a little anecdote.
Yeah.
Today I was reading A Trumpet of the Swan.
Yes.
And the fan was spinning around, and so the kids were having a blast throwing one of those small foam balls that you get in a goodie bag or whatever, and they're throwing it up in the fan and letting it fly. And they were having a blast. And so I was so tempted to be like, don't do that because you're not listening. But then, so I would just check in and say, do you guys want to just do this? Because you can. I don't have to keep reading.
Right.
It's fun. You guys are laughing. It's funny. It hits me in the head, you know, hits the book. Yeah. And it's funny. And so I had to remember, like, I need to love them and let them have fun in this moment and not be like, are you listening to this chapter?
Right.
And
because that's not what your read aloud isn't about, just the retention of the story and being able to spit back to you everything they just heard.
It's just enjoying the moment together and a good story. And then I was like, but I'm happy to stop it. I don't need, and they're like, no, keep reading. I'm like, but you can still do this even if I'm not reading. They're like, no, keep reading. So I'm like, okay. They're listening while they're giggling and seeing where the ball flies throughout this huge room, you know.
That's awesome.
But that's a moment where I felt like I am loving them.
Yes. You're choosing loving them over forcing them to do something that isn't as loving.
Yeah.
You know, and of course we want our children to be academically successful, but what does that mean? Or at the sake of what?
Yeah.
You know, so we like those check-ins. I think that they're a great opportunity for you to feel really confident that you are enough.
Yeah.
And so this leads us to custom education. This is one of our favorite parts about homeschooling, is that my homeschool doesn't need to look like Mandy's.
Right. And it shouldn't. We're totally different people, and we have totally different kids, and totally get different lifestyles, and totally different spouses.
Yep.
And totally different home environments.
Yeah. Mandy's not raising my kids.
Yeah.
And I might really love what she's doing or be inspired by it, but the real question is does it work for me?
Exactly.
And so it's okay to customize it to fit your family. It's okay that some amazing thing that you saw on Instagram doesn't work for you.
Right.
I think we get
you don't even need to try it.
You don't even have to try it if it doesn't feel good to you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we get so caught up in seeing the really cool ideas. We all do that. And I know you do, and you already do amazing things.
I know, and I still have the FOMO.
Yeah. And so some of us have higher levels of FOMO than others. And it's important to recognize that you can't do everything.
Right.
And that you don't have to do what someone over there is doing. You don't have to have the Instagram perfect homeschool room.
Yeah.
Is it working for you? Are you seeking wisdom in what you're doing with your children? Are you loving them? Then who cares if your room isn't picture perfect? Or if the walls aren't painted bright white.
Yeah.
You know?
Or if you're not physically reading the book and you want them to just audiobook it with their headphones.
Oh, man.
And talk about it later. You know,
For sure.
You don't have to do what the pictures are showing you of the person sitting in their family room, which I was doing today. And I'm like, I look just like a picture I saw today on Instagram of sitting there reading while the kids are playing in the family room instead of around the table. But you don't have to mimic the picture. It just happened today. But
and don't you wish you had a photographer right there
to
take
take
every photo? You know, and because it truly wasn't staged today.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I posted a picture of my son because it was funny, and he had requested to do his math book on a Saturday morning.
Oh, cute.
He has no concept of what days you're supposed to do school and what days are not school days. He has no idea. He wasn't allowed to go on the screen, and he knew that. And so he said, okay, I want to sit at the table with you. Can I do my math?
Aww.
You know, and so it had nothing to do with him wanting to do math, but there was that little idolatry in there, that little proud mom moment of, he picked math. You know, but It's fun for him.
Because it's an activity book.
He gets
it's
the
fun.
blocks out. He sits next to me, and he gets to
Awesome.
show me how he writes his numbers,
Yeah.
which he loves that validation. Why wouldn't he want to do that?
Yeah.
I'm loving him in that moment.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
like we're bonding and connecting in that moment.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what he's going to pick.
Yeah.
It's akin to asking to read a book.
Right.
You know,
right.
and on a Saturday morning, that wouldn't be that unusual.
Right.
But I took a picture of it, and then I'm pretty sure I also shared the reality. You know, I shared the funny, like, oh, my son wanted to do math today. And then I said, okay, but truth be told, here's the whole story. I want to share this quote by Jean Piaget, the Swiss psychologist known for his work in child development. He said, "Children have real understanding only of that which they invent themselves. And each time that we try to teach them something too quickly, we keep them from reinventing it themselves." And I think about that a lot. I think, especially because I have a 4-year-old right now, and he reinvents things a lot. He hears a story, and then he'll go and get the stuffed animals that he thinks best represents the characters, and he's reinventing this. You know, this happens everywhere. This is his way of taking it in and understanding it. Because I'm not just shoving so much information down his throat, making him say back to me what the theme of this book was, or, you know, the moral of this story. And not that we don't discuss morals. That's not what I'm saying. But you understand my point here is we're not trying to take away their ability to relate to the content themselves.
Yeah. I mean, we have this microscope sitting on this table right in front of us.
Yep.
And I have had it since my son was for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And it's been in the box the whole time. And then my daughter, my 10-year-old, had used it at vet camp.
Oh, right.
And said, "Don't we have a microscope?" And I'm like, "We do." And I never took it out of the box, and we have it.
Yep.
So she took it out. She had to put in the light, the battery, you know, put in the lens, whatever it was. She had to assemble it. And then I said, "Oh, I have a box of slides I bought last year. I was going to do for human body, but I didn't do it." So here you go.
Yep.
And now she's going outside finding dead insects and capturing some and letting them die too, so she can pull their legs out. And
Wah, wah.
I know. But she's making her own slides, and we can see
Yeah,
the slide
yeah.
making. She has the tweezers and like a little scalpel, and she has all these things.
Solution. Yeah.
Yeah, so she has all these things that she's putting together to make, and she's doing it completely on her own. And I just felt such gladness that I hadn't imposed that.
Yep.
That she's discovering it on her own, and she's the only one that's interested. It's sitting here. The other two haven't cared to look in it.
Totally.
And that's fine. That's not their interest.
fine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to segue off of that, which is that children are natural learners. And we've shared this before. My favorite psychologist is Dr. Peter Gray. And he has devoted much of his career to studying children's natural instinct to learn. And he discusses this in his book, Free to Learn, on his blog, Freedom to Learn, which is on Psychology Today's website. And then he also founded the Alliance for Self-Directed Education. Oh. And so there's a lot of information available about child-led learning or self-directed education and how we can support that. So sometimes that's called unschooling. There's different thoughts about what unschooling is. Mm-hmm. I think the old-fashioned term for unschooling is more of this, the self-directed learning. It's not that parents are completely hands-off. They let the child lead and then provide some tools and opportunities to learn more. Yeah. And so they kind of help with that, which is what I really love to do. And I don't do it exclusively. I lead sometimes, but I also try to leave a lot of space to allow them to learn. And go ahead.
Well, and that's why I like the eclectic approach.
Exactly.
You know, you can kind of dip in where you feel you want to customize for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And so if you feel one thing is more successful in your child's learning, go that route more. There's no rules. Yeah. You know, that's the really neat thing is if you want to raise a successful adult, we've just given you a ton of information about how to measure those things or how to.
It's your checklist.
It's your checklist. Yeah. Are you doing these things? Then you're probably going to have a chance at a successful adult. And of course, there's so much that's beyond our control.
But notice it didn't say achieves this reading level by this age, achieves this math level by this age.
And I didn't parse the information. I didn't delete something that didn't fit my narrative. I did very broad searches and I stuck with them. Some of them
the name bias.
Right. Right. Exactly. You know, so I didn't parse that. I
Yeah.
didn't filter it. And I didn't only use resources that are homeschool friendly. I did anything.
Right.
Because I was curious to see what it said. And there was very clear commonalities there. You know, and I think that those are pretty clear to most people with some common sense there. We just get in our own heads about it. And so this is why I wanted to provide that reassurance. And then Peter Gray also spends a lot of time talking about play, and that especially for early childhood, play is how children learn. And that came up many times in those lists at the beginning in the research was play. I wanted to share Psychology Today's pros and cons of homeschooling.
Ooh.
So this is for you, homeschool moms. Pros: efficiency, flexibility, scheduling, safety, warmth, and nurturing, expanded curriculum, accommodating special circumstances, accommodating special needs, continual learning for you, the parent. I love that was a pro.
Oh,
I love learning
all the time.
I know, and I'm always so fascinated.
Yes.
Finding like-minded others. I'm not sure that's definitely not exclusive to homeschooling.
And you
but
have a little
sure,
more
it's a pro.
freedom too, because you have more free time.
Definitely. And academic achievement. Those are all pros in Psychology Today, not a pro homeschooling type of website.
Right.
You know? And then here are the cons. Embedding your biases and misconceptions.
Which I'm okay with.
Yep. Conflicting responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so they're talking about being tugged in too many different ways.
And
if
different
you're working,
ages and
yeah, or if like a working mom trying to be responsible for working, trying to homeschool, trying to be a wife, trying to, manage the household. So there can be conflicting responsibilities. Restricting your child's experience. Constraining your child's learning. Burning out emotionally.
Yeah, and we see that a lot.
Yeah, that one I definitely would consider a con, but I think that's a con to being a mom.
Everything. Yeah. We all need our me time.
Yep. Purchasing school supplies. So they're putting that in there as an expense, which I laughed because when stated like that, I'm thinking, don't most people have to buy their supplies for public school?
They do.
But they mean curriculum. So I will self-correct.
Yeah, that's true.
They mean purchasing curriculum. Staying up to date with knowledge.
I guess if they're using curriculum from 25 years ago.
Well, so do educators.
Well, yeah. So in I know in schools, like the Prentice Hall, when I was teaching, the Prentice Hall book I had been there for a decade.
Yeah, it was already out of date.
Yeah. So I mean,
This is not exclusive to homeschooling. Like some of the pros weren't exclusive to homeschooling.
Right.
Neither are these cons. But sure. You could say staying up to date with knowledge. Yeah. Check where you're getting your information from. Just like educators do, they have to take continuing education courses. I hope that we are researching as we're learning alongside with our kids. Like that's was just
what the homeschool conference is for. Yeah.
Exactly. Motivating your child's curiosity. So we're on the cons list. So I thought that was
they
interesting.
have a hard time motivating
Yeah,
it.
maybe.
Yeah.
Arranging social activities.
Yeah, you could be pulled in multiple directions. Yeah.
Staying connected with the homeschooling networks. That one was funny to me. I mean, I guess anybody has the proclivity to live under a rock if they want to, And
it takes effort.
It takes effort.
But it's not just driving your kid. If you're not in a routine of driving your kid somewhere every day, then you could lose touch.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting that these cons I did not feel were necessarily going to talk most people out of homeschooling unless they didn't really want to begin with.
Well, because the pros are so much more weighty.
Right.
Warmth and nurturing,
That's big. Expanded curriculum.
Academic achievement.
Right. And, again, there are more to each of these categories.
Totally, yeah.
I'm just summarizing as, evidence of how abundant this information is. And so, for the sake of staying up to date with knowledge or, constraining your child's learning, we talk about that in episode 28, our hesitant homeschooler number 1, I want to homeschool, but. And then our subcategory is, I don't know the content. And that one's a big deal. I think a lot of people feel very concerned that they can't teach their kids because they don't know how to do advanced math. They don't know how to diagram a sentence, and those can be really intimidating things until you break everything down into manageable chunks, which is that, okay, outsourcing your teaching is fine. So we're not saying
just using curriculum.
Right. Or find curriculum that teaches those things and you can learn it with them. Again, the markers for successful adults were not being able to diagram sentences. It was having a nurturing parent there encouraging their kids.
Yeah, and you're enough in that.
Absolutely.
You have been given this soul to raise, and you're enough. And so whatever 2 + 2s you got to do with them, that's not, they need that. They need to know 2 + 2 is 4. But they really need the person behind the teaching the 2 + 2 is 4.
I agree. And then when you think about it, what do you want your kid to think of you? Do you want them to assume you're an expert in everything? And so by you not showing that you aren't, they're just going to assume that you are, or are you going to be so afraid of you not knowing stuff that you're insecure and you're going to show them that you're embarrassed by that?
Well, think of how we feel if we feel insecure about something and we're at a party and we're with someone who expresses that insecurity about something. What do we feel? We feel kinship to that person, and we feel like, oh, all right. And then maybe it's something you're tackling together. Now, okay, let's try and figure out what we do know together. And so your child will feel the same thing. When I say, hey, I tell my kids all the time, I'm learning this right now with you. And they're like, oh, really?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
That's
I love
what's
that.
so fun. This is so fun to get to learn this with you.
I agree. I love being able to share that with my kids. I don't need to pretend I'm some kind of expert at any of this stuff. I can say, oh, I used to love doing this in school.
Yes.
Here's how I did it, or here's how I learned it, or to be able to say, no, I know that's incorrect. Let's go back. How would you like to correct this?
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell you? Do you want to let Mr. Demi on Matthew C show you the correct answer? And so there's multiple ways to show them that learning is for everybody. And again, I've said this multiple times. My goal is to create lifelong learners. So how better to do that than to show that I am one myself, that I don't know everything.
That's the modeling.
That's the modeling. Exactly. And then I wanted to share some information on benefits of having a parent at home, because again, this is just more validation. So this comes from Very Well Family. A 2014 study found that children benefit from having a parent at home beyond just the early years. The study measured the educational performance of 68,000 children and found that the most significant impact was on children ages 6 to 7. So that's like the emergence of like reading and the breakthrough on math and those types of like big cognitive changes. But children through high school benefited from having at least one stay-at-home parent. It's that involvement. Some research has found that homeschoolers generally score 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized tests and achieve above average scores on the ACT and SAT tests. So we've shared that before. We have seen there is some evidence, research-based evidence that homeschoolers can achieve higher academic success. Not all homeschoolers, of course, but
right, just like you can't apply the same stereotype to the public school.
Exactly. So your kids will be fine.
Yeah.
If academic achievement is a goal of yours and your child's as well, I am confident that you will reach those goals.
Yeah.
If academic achievement or really high education is not the goal, I'm sure your child will still be successful. And I thought it was really interesting. I actually was on Facebook yesterday, and it was just in Christian homeschooling parents. It's a group that I think you're in also,
Oh.
but we're just members of this group. And so I love to see what's going on in it. And the other day was just a mom sharing about how her kids are successful. They are almost all in trades, or they were hired into professions straight out of high school. And they get comments by their bosses, managers, or coworkers that they're surprised to find out that they're homeschooled. You know, and this goes back to some of that stigma around homeschoolers that's still kind of old-fashioned. But they're impressed and surprised at the work ethic of homeschoolers. And I think that that's another really big area that homeschoolers can excel, is that they usually are at home and having to work in a way that's very different than public school. There's a lot of forced work. I think in public education, they have to do it, or there's major punishment, or they just skate by and get through without doing it. You know, but when your kids are at home, I'm sure they're contributing to the household in some way, or you're there watching them get their work done or trying to find new ways to motivate them. And if you're not, this is that call to try that. You know, work ethic is a huge skill to have in your child for their future success. And so I just thought it was really great. One of the moms who read this post, she asked, what's your best advice to a homeschool mom who worries a little that she's not doing enough? And I thought, oh, how appropriate for this podcast. And this mom said, my best advice for anything in life consists of 4 words. It's not about you. Our children are on loan to us from God. How we educate, train, and disciple them should be a reflection of what we believe is God's best. You can't teach them everything. You shouldn't even try. However, you can develop in them a love for the Lord and a love for learning. And I thought that was really, really good. You know, that God gives us wisdom. He gives us our children. And, you know, even if you don't believe in God or have a relationship like that, you were gifted your own children. You know, you have your children, you are the parent, and you get to decide what is best for them. But their success is not about you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like that. And then, let's see. I wanted to end with a few affirmations and some resources for these affirmations. So, there's 100 affirmations for homeschool moms, as well as 10 positive homeschool affirmations linked in our show notes. These were my favorites. My children are working at their own pace, and that is perfect. Repeat that to yourself. I allow my children the freedom to be themselves. I need my calming voice, and we need our soothing music in the background. We do have our candle on.
It's eucalyptus and sandalwood and lavender.
I trust the journey. I like that one too. We don't know
It's
what's
a
about to
journey.
come.
Yeah.
Trust that you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You can't know it all now. I will do what I can. No one expects me to do it all. And that one got me. Because I'm always thinking that everybody needs me to be everything. And then I said that out loud, and I thought, that's true.
Yeah.
My husband doesn't expect me to do it all.
And when you're sick, you really see that.
Yeah.
When I had COVID, all of a sudden, everything, it's
Life
amazing.
goes on.
All the things.
Yeah.
That's when my daughter actually learned to read, was when I had COVID.
Right. She
She
had
came
this
to me.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, she came to me with her Piggy and Elephant, read to me through the screen door, showing me the first book she read. And I hadn't been part of her life for a whole week because I was quarantining.
Right.
I was on my COVID-cation.
Yeah, COVID-cation, some vacation. But that is so true. Life goes on, and it's a blessing to be able to not have to do it all. But I think we put that on ourselves. It's a self-inflicted problem. My kids are learning to be kind, honest, and helpful individuals, even on days when math assignments don't get done.
So good.
And then I linked 51 affirmations for homeschooled kids. I'm not going to share those because that's for your kids. This is about you. This is when it is about you. But that's it. That's what I wanted to share about You Are Enough. We have episode 50 on identity, where we talk about how we often root our identities in being homeschool moms. And in that episode, we just talk a lot about how to be careful not to do that, because we're just going to always set ourselves up to fail.
Yeah.
And so this is just another reminder of that. And I I hope that this is encouraging. I hope that there's some validation and reassurance in here for knowing that you are enough for your kids. Don't model your homeschool around anyone else except for the kids that you have. And now it's time for
the Coop Q A,
where we answer our question.
Oh, our question.
Yeah. So we decided, since this is episode 100, and we're going to end the first half of our season here at episode 100, and then give you some faves through the holidays, we thought instead of answering your question, we would answer a question we had.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I'm curious to know what you would say.
Mandy, what's a subject you don't feel like you are enough to teach your kids?
So I feel that way for science. I feel that way in that I have less of an interest. So there's a reason the microscope has not come out. You know?
Yeah.
And there's a reason I do more of a literature focus or a math focus or even a history focus. Science requires too many supplies and too much pre-planning and documenting. And it just seems like a lot. It's very overwhelming to me. And I don't have the natural knowledge. I don't attach to words. I don't care about it.
I know.
And so I don't feel like I'm enough. And then the microscope thing happens and I'm like,
see?
Now she can research. She knows how to research.
Right.
When we did human body last year, I was so thankful to have the gather round, because then I just read through. I had some of the resources you had given me, and then I had to gear up for those dissections. I talked about it on the podcast because it was very overwhelming for me to do that. And so I feel like I gave them a really good experience. And I didn't know anything about any of this, but it was still enough.
Yes.
It was enough. And that's what I have to remind myself with, is that whatever I feel overwhelmed with, if I just have a tool or two and that my kids are equipped to look things up themselves, it's enough.
I agree. I pretty much would have picked science if you hadn't. But I feel like another one that I'm less confident in is fine art.
Oh.
So I have an interest in history, maybe art history.
Yeah, totally.
But the actual doing of art, sketching, drawing, I don't know anything. And I remember being intimidated by it as a child. I took some kind of art camp or something one week. And I just remember not loving it. I remember thinking I chose the wrong thing. Like I did a theater camp one week and that was fantastic. That was totally performing art is my thing. Fine art, not so much. Trying to sketch and draw, I just never felt good enough. And I never quite understood the tools, even the breakdown of finding a shape and going through all of that. I'm like, I don't see any shapes in there, and then I got more confident in that as I've taken courses as an adult, learning about how our brains are different and how we take in information differently. I'm not skilled in that, but I'm their mama.
Yeah,
it's okay if I'm not good at art.
Yeah.
I'm enough for them.
You are enough.
Thanks for listening. We love your support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review to let us know how we're doing, and share our podcast with your friends who need a little community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.